Denari provides you with three pledge-related donor statement formats that can be used to keep your donors up to date on the status of their pledge. They are the Pledge Acknowledgement, the Pledge Statement, and the Pledge Combo. Standard Denari gives you the printed version of all three of these. If you have purchased e-correspondence, you can also send the Pledge Acknowledgement and Pledge Statement by email. In most cases, we are able to modify or customize the layout of these statements within some limits. You can contact tech support to discuss the changes you'd like to make to the standard layout for each of these. We will focus on the printed versions in this video and covered the email version in a separate video. Denari also provides three standard reports to let you track your pledge activity. In addition, you have Pledge Segmenter available that allows you to filter on almost all pledge characteristics to get the pledge information you need. Let's begin by discussing the three statement formats. A statement is a document that is intended for your donors, and you can pick and choose which, if any, you want to send. The first statement we'll look at is the Pledge Acknowledgement. The acknowledgement, by Denari's definition, is a one-time statement that would normally go out following the initial setup of a pledge. It is a kind of shaking hands with the donor. It lets them know that you have their pledge record and are confirming that their commitment is set up and ready to go. If you decide to use acknowledgements, you begin by clicking the plus button and then letters. Here you'll create a letter body for your pledge acknowledgement. Click Add New to create a new letter. The default pledge acknowledgement template has the pledge information at the bottom, the start date, pledge amount, frequency, etc. The top of that page has the date, the salutation, and the letter body. It is this letter body that you create here. This gives you the opportunity to thank the donor and talk about the importance of their commitment. Later, when you run the acknowledgements, Denari will merge this letter body into the statement template. There are two versions of the letter body here, the text version at the top and the HTML version at the bottom. You'll use the top field for the printed statement and the HTML version for the emailed statement. The next step is to go to the pledge record. You will typically do this while setting up the pledge, but let's review that. Click on Names and then Name List Management, and then I'll select a donor. On the right, we'll click on Pledges, and I'll select a pledge that's already here, but you could certainly create a new one. In the General section, we find the Queue for Acknowledgement checkbox. Check the box and select a letter below. Now you can run the pledge acknowledgements. Again, you would normally do this in the process of setting up a pledge. If you have set up 10 pledges today, you will run them usually as a group, for example. Now, to run them, let's click on the Correspond button and then Pledge Acknowledgements. You can filter the statements by using a pledge segment or by start and end dates, as you see here. However, for the time being, let's assume that we want to send the statements to those 10 donors that we set up today. All we need to do is click the Submit Request button at the top of the page. Denari will find those 10 pledges with the boxes checked and create an acknowledgement for each one. At the same time, Denari will uncheck the boxes over in the pledges. As we said earlier, this is intended to be a one-time statement. So now you can set up more pledges tomorrow and run those at the end of the day as well. Now back to the filters. There are times that you may want to send the acknowledgements, but only to selected people, and you don't want to uncheck that box. You can use the pledge segment or the start and end date as filters. When you use a filter, Denari will not uncheck the Queue for Acknowledgement checkbox in the pledge. You can get more information about Pledge Segmenter from the video on that topic. The next statement format we'll look at is called the Pledge Statement. It is a format that can be used to update donors on the status of their pledge. It can be sent to everyone periodically, or by using a pledge segment can be filtered so that it can be sent to just people who are behind or people who are more than a number of days behind, etc. The pledge segment can also filter out those paying by credit card or EFT. Some Denari users feel that it is important to update donors on a regular basis, whether they're behind or not. Some only want to send statements to those who are behind and not paying by credit card or EFT. You can choose if and to whom you want to send statements. Just like the pledge acknowledgement, you will begin by creating a letter body. The top 2/3 of the default statement format is the letter, and the bottom 1/3 is the pledge information supplied by Denari. The second step is to create a pledge segment if you need those filters. Again, if you need more information about how to create a pledge segment, take a few minutes to review the video on that topic. To run the pledge statements, you'll click on Correspond and then Pledge Statements. First, enter a calculation date. Most of the time, that's just the date that you're running the statements, so you can enter today's date. Now, select the letter body you created earlier. Again, this is just the letter body portion. Denari will fill in the date and salutation at the top. The account number field can be used to print just one statement for one donor. You can skip this field if you're printing for a group of people. The pledge segment field, as mentioned earlier, can be used to filter the statements if needed. Again, you might want to only send them to those who are behind. This field is optional, however. If you don't select a segment here, Denari will produce a statement for all open pledges. The name segment field to exclude allows you to create a name segment that identifies a group of people that you want to remove from the statement process. For example, you may not want to send statements to your staff or board members. You can create a classification to identify those name records and use that to create your name segment. Select that here, and Denari will not print statements for them. And of course, you can use any of the other filter options found in the name segment. There are 3 statement formats to choose from. One pledge per page is for a donor that has more than one pledge or only one pledge, and Denari will produce only one page. If that donor has more than one pledge, Denari will produce multiple pages, putting each pledge on its own page. The multi-pledge per page, if a donor has more than one pledge, then Denari will produce only one page with all of the pledges listed on that page. And finally, one donor per page sponsorship. This is just like the multi per page, but it adds some sponsorship fields. Tech support is able to modify the statement formats with some limitations. It works best if you print out a default and then contact tech support to discuss the changes you would like. We can use the default then as a starting point. Each of the 3 options uses a different template, so you'll need to let us know which one of these you'll be using. You can choose to print labels or envelopes at the same time that the statements are being created if you choose something from this field. The order field can be used to output the statements in one of these 3 options. Now, just click the Make Statements, Pledge Statements button here at the top on the right. Denari will produce the statements and put them in your inbox. The last statement that we'll cover here is called the Pledge Combo. It is intended to replace the thank you receipt. In fact, the donor's name record must have Suppress Receipts checkbox checked in Denari to produce a pledge combo. So instead of sending a thank you receipt following each donation, you would send a pledge combo at the end of each month. The combo contains both pledge information and donation information by month. It shows what has been donated in January, March, April, etc. It also contains a summary of the donor's pledges. It does not include specific gift information about the last gift. Some Denari users send pledge combos to those donors who donate by credit card or EFT, and they may only send them once a quarter. Some send them every month. Many Denari users think that it is important to send a thank you receipt following each gift, and for that reason, they don't use pledge combos at all. You can decide what works best for you. Just like the other statements, the top of the pledge combo contains the letter body, so you'll need to create that first. You also need to check the suppress receipts checkbox in each donor's name record that will be receiving a combo instead of a receipt, and you will need to assign a classification to each donor if you plan to send combos to only some of those donors. You will then need to create a name segment that uses that classification to identify those donors. And now you're ready to run the combos. We'll go to correspond and then pledge combos. First, select the name segment that you'll be using. If you plan to send a combo to all of your donors with all open pledges, you can skip this field. Enter the as of date, and that's usually today's date. Select the letter and select the output order. Finally, select the output type. Usually that will be the printed combos option, but you can output the data to Excel or one of the other options when needed. You could then, for example, create your own layout in Word and then use the Excel option as a data source for a merge into that Word template. Now run the combos by clicking the Run Combos button at the top of the page on the right. As with the other statement formats, we can modify the layout to some degree, and you can contact tech support to discuss the options for that. Pledge Segmenter is the primary tool that you can use to report on your pledge activity. It provides a great deal of filtering flexibility. As mentioned earlier, you can use it to find pledges that are behind, pledges to a specific fund or appeal, credit card and EFT pledges, and much more. Again, review the videos on Pledge Segmenter for more specific details. Denari does offer 3 standard pledge reports, and they are all found by clicking on the report link on the left and then pledges. And they are the pledge detail long, pledge detail short, and pledge summary. All 3 work in much the same way in that they require a pledge segment as a filter, so you'll need to create that first. But the outputs are different. Anytime you see the word detail in Denari, it means all records. In this case, it means that the output will be a list of all pledges. If a donor has more than one pledge, for example, it will show each of those pledges. There is a long and short format, which just means that the short offers less information for each pledge than the long version. The summary report is the opposite of detail. It groups or summarizes information. So instead of seeing every pledge for a set of pledges, you will see a summary of those pledges. Since all 3 work in the same way, let's look at the summary report. First, choose a sort order for the report, either donor name or account. Select a pledge segment. Again, using the segment that you've previously created will provide the filter for this report. You can look at, for example, those pledges that are behind in the format of the pledge summary. The name segment field can be used to further filter this report if needed. For example, if you want to look at the pledges from donors in a certain zip code, you could create that name record that finds just those donors. Combined with the pledge segment that identifies those pledges that are behind, you will get a report in the summary format that shows pledges from donors in that zip code that are behind. And you can use the start and end dates as filters if needed. Usually, if you're using a pledge segment as a filter, it is best to put the start and end dates in the segment along with whatever other filters you want to use. But if you're not using a pledge segment, you can filter on just the start and end dates here. To run the report, click the Submit Request button at the top of the page, and Denari will put the report in your inbox. This concludes this session on pledge statements and reports. If you have any questions, please contact tech support through the support button at the top of the Denari page.